special counsel wants to know a little bit more about another New York Times report. John Dowd raised the prospect of pardons for Flynn and Manafort. How does John Dowd figure into all of this in your view? And I understand you had some more thoughts about Dowd more broadly.
Yeah, and in discussing who might be the source of these questions, of course, we can't pose that to the witness here we have before us, Mike Schmidt. But John Dowd is someone who used to be
he'd shoot all of us before he'd tell any of us who any of his sources are.
John Dowd is someone who used to be part of the Trump legal team, is now no longer, and the New York Times reported that that this did not come from the Trump legal team, and I think all of us believe it did not come from the tight-lipped special counsel's office. And so I was speculating earlier with Savannah Guthrie on the Today Show that perhaps John Dowd could be the source of this. And at 10:16 a.m., I got a very stern email from John Dowd who said, "I was not the source. I was not the leak. Please correct the record on national television." And so I'm just putting it out there that John Dowd is saying emphatically on the record that he was not the source of this material.
Mario, I can one-up you. Before I'd even gone on television, two people called me to tell me that Rudy wasn't Mike Schmidt's source either. I said, I don't work at the Times, and I haven't even been on TV yet. So no one wants to take the blame, and we won't put Mike Schmidt on the spot on this. But let me come back to you, Mike, because this was your body of reporting, and ask you what these questions were communicated back in March. What's transpired since then has been the departure of Dowd, the arrival of Rudy, and a whole lot of ongoing activity that people suggest that obstruction of justice may not be something that they're investigating as an event that took place in the past, but there could be behaviors that are ongoing. Do you have any insight into that?
Well, the interesting thing was in the questions was something about an interaction the president had with Don McGahn in January. In January, when we reported that Trump had asked McGahn in last June, to fire Mueller, the president got very upset about this and confronted McGahn about it and essentially said this did not happen, and it essentially asked him to correct the record on it. And there were some concerns about that because why was there talking to a witness about things the witness had said to the special counsel's office. This had been relayed back to the special counsel. So whatever transpired there was certainly enough to get on Mueller's radar to the point that they want to ask the president why was it that he was asking McGahn about this. McGahn had been told by a White House official at the time that the president may get rid of him if he didn't put out a statement that corrected this. So it's one of these things that has gone on just as recently as January in response to a media report.
And we have a graphic, I think, of all of the flashpoints on this list of questions that involve Don McGahn or things he would have known about, things he's been reported to have been involved in, the Sessions recusal, the Flynn firing. We saw that testimony this hour from Sally Yates, the Comey firing, and the attempt that you just described at the Mueller firing. Elise Jordan, what picture does this paint of Don McGahn's day-to-day existence inside the Trump West Wing?
He seems like he's been fighting for survival since the moment he stepped into the door. He's been trying to do just simply the impossible with Donald Trump, and he has a client who doesn't want to stay within the law. He wants to have a lawyer who helps him do whatever he wants to do, and that's been the repeated pattern that we've seen with McGahn throughout all of this. I really wonder who leaked those questions, because it certainly was not in Donald Trump's interest necessarily, because it just reminds you of how much there is in this timeline, ranging from the party platform to Eric Prince and the Seychelles to Mike Flynn and his firing to Sally Yates to Comey. And so it doesn't necessarily do Donald Trump any favors, except that his advisors are clearly so desperate to not have him go and sit down with Bob Mueller.
And then that was a theory posited to me that maybe what it does is it lays out for the president just how perilous an interview with someone like Bob Mueller, who one of the president's allies describes as a prosecutorial assassin.
Well, you would expect that the president's lawyers would have had this discussion on their own, right? They don't need Mueller to tell them what the president's vulnerabilities are in the main, right? We can all sort of divine what those problems are. In fact, I would assume that the folks here aren't terribly surprised by that list of topics, right? There might be a question or two here or there that strikes us as something we hadn't thought about, but in the main, we know that these firings and the president's anger about Sessions' recusal and on and on and on are sort of in the main, the obstruction case, right?
Right.
So What are they trying to do? I'm not sure, Nicole, but I would expect that a good lawyer would have had this conversation with the president.
All right. Mike Schmidt, congrats on the reporting. We're grateful to have it and you. Joyce Vance, thank you for spending some time with us.